Hooters stands out as one of the most unique restaurant brands in the industry, not necessarily because of the menu or dining environment, but primarily due to its servers. Unlike most eateries, it's not the food or ambiance that defines the experience, but rather the presence of the iconic Hooters girls. For over 4 decades, their bubbly demeanor and instantly recognizable uniforms have played a major role in driving the brand's popularity. It's reasonable to argue that the success and sustained presence of Hooters are largely attributable to these women and the image they project. However, recent developments suggest that Hooters is facing a critical period of instability. In 2024, the company announced the closure of approximately 40 locations across the U.S., describing them as underperforming. This move was especially noteworthy considering the chain was already down to about 300 branches, significantly fewer than the 400 restaurants they operated at their peak in 2008, right before the financial downturn. Perhaps even more alarming, in March 2025, the company filed for bankruptcy, revealing a staggering $376 million in liabilities. Despite these challenges, the brand is not vanishing completely. Instead, it is transitioning, and changes are already underway. I've seen a growing number of people expressing interest in understanding what's been going on with Hooters lately. I agree. It's a topic that deserves a deeper look. In this discussion, I'll break down what I believe are the 5 main contributors to Hooters' recent struggles, beginning with external circumstances that were largely outside their control. Let's begin by exploring the external economic factors that have worked against Hooters in recent years. It's worth noting that the brand never fully rebounded after the Great Recession in the late 2000s. As consumer spending tightened, dining out became less common for many Americans. Fast forward to the pandemic, and the situation became even more dire. Like countless other restaurants, Hooters saw a dramatic drop in foot traffic and sales. In response, the company issued asset-backed bonds in 2021, likely as a means of navigating that challenging period. Much of the debt that led to their bankruptcy filing stems from those very decisions. In 2024, when they closed down dozens of locations, Hooters issued a statement suggesting that broader market conditions were the primary reason. This likely referred to the rising costs of food and labor, alongside inflation that caused many consumers to reduce discretionary spending. When they officially filed for bankruptcy less than a year later, the company cited inflationary pressures and industry headwinds in their legal documents, phrasing that mirrors the challenges faced by many in the casual dining sector. Moreover, fast food and fast casual dining concepts have steadily gained market share, pulling consumers away from traditional sit-down restaurants. The current economic environment has only accelerated this trend. Even other well-known brands in the same category, such as Red Lobster and TGI Fridays, have recently filed for bankruptcy themselves. Hooters had attempted to pivot. Back in 2017, the company launched a spin-off called Hoots Wings, a fast-casual, takeout-focused concept that emphasized chicken wings without the trademark uniforms or branding. On paper, it seemed like a timely and strategic evolution. By 2021, Hooters had secured a deal to open 60 franchised Hoots Wings locations. However, the rollout has been underwhelming. As of 2025, only 3 of these establishments remain open, according to the company's own website. Despite having potential, the concept has failed to gain traction, marking another missed opportunity in the company's efforts to adapt. While many of these issues stem from external forces, there's much more to Hooters' decline than just the economic climate. Controversy has trailed Hooters throughout much of its existence, often dragging down its reputation and limiting its appeal. This is not particularly surprising given the brand's provocative image and suggestive uniforms, but the impact has been significant nonetheless. I've previously created content discussing Hooters' long history of legal and social disputes, and it's quite an extensive list. Over the years, the company has faced numerous lawsuits involving allegations of sexual harassment, discrimination, and unfair labor practices. One particular case from 2002 illustrates just how tone-deaf some of their marketing stunts have been. A server who won a contest expected to receive a new Toyota as a prize, only to be blindfolded, led outside, and presented with a toy Yoda figurine instead. She later sued the company, and rightfully so. While many of these lawsuits have been quietly settled out of court, they've nevertheless taken a financial toll on the brand. Even more damaging, though, has been the reputational fallout. For decades, critics have questioned the values that Hooters promotes. Activists have organized protests against the chain, and many families choose to steer clear altogether. In short, these controversies have made it increasingly difficult for the brand to grow beyond its niche market, despite the fact that the restaurant landscape has changed significantly since Hooters first opened its doors. It's impossible to talk about Hooters without acknowledging how the competitive landscape has evolved around them. When the brand launched in 1983, it was a trailblazer in what later became known as the Brestourant category, a term used to describe restaurants that emphasize attractive female servers as a major part of the appeal. That niche has since exploded into a multi-billion-dollar market. In fact, a rival chain called Bikini Sports Bar and Grill was granted a federal trademark on the term Brestourant in 2013. Another key competitor, Twin Peaks, has grown rapidly and now boasts around 100 locations. Interestingly, several high-level Hooters executives left to franchise Twin Peaks outlets, prompting a lawsuit over alleged intellectual property theft. In addition to themed dining establishments, Hooters also helped popularize chicken wings in the restaurant scene. When the chain first launched, wings were just starting to gain mainstream attention, and Hooters leaned into them as a core menu item. Since then, wings have exploded in popularity. Americans now consume billions of them each year. In fact, during the 2025 Super Bowl, it's estimated that Americans devoured nearly 1.5 billion chicken wings, an average of over 4 per person. But the problem for Hooters is that others have captured much of that market. Buffalo Wild Wings, which opened just a year before Hooters, now has over 1,000 locations. Wingstop, launched more than a decade later, has grown to more than 2,000. In terms of wings and casual dining, Hooters simply doesn't dominate like it once did. The field is crowded, and the brand is no longer the undisputed leader it used to be. One of the more complex and underappreciated reasons for Hooters' decline involves the business side, specifically the shifts in ownership and leadership. Hooters was originally founded by a group of 6 friends in Clearwater, Florida, in 1983. They weren't restaurant veterans, and their first location was far from ideal, but through creative marketing and a fresh concept, the brand caught on. In 2001, those founders sold the rights to the Hooters brand for $60 million, but held on to their individual locations. Since then, the company's ownership has changed hands several times. Tragedy struck in 2006 when Robert Brooks, the majority owner at the time, passed away suddenly. A legal battle soon ensued between his son, who inherited 30% of the company, and Brooks's widow. Eventually, the company was sold to a consortium of private investors in 2011. Despite attempts to resell the business in 2015, it wasn't until 2019 that it was transferred again, this time to 2 different private equity firms. Frequent changes like these often bring shifts in leadership, strategy, and vision. Plans are scrapped, initiatives abandoned, and momentum lost. But Hooters' situation is even more unusual. The original founders, despite selling the brand, retained ownership of about 20 locations, primarily in Florida and Chicago. According to Neil Kyer, one of the original partners, these restaurants have significantly outperformed the rest of the chain. In the wake of the recent bankruptcy, that same group is now poised to take over roughly 100 more locations. It's a huge leap, expanding operations to 5 times their current scale. Kyer has been outspoken in his criticism of the private equity owners, arguing that they altered key aspects of the business, from recipes to service standards. He specifically mentioned that they had changed the original buffalo sauce recipe and that his restaurants still use the superior original version. But more than anything, his criticism centers around how far the brand has leaned into overt sexuality, claiming that it has pushed away families, a once crucial demographic. That criticism leads directly into the final major issue, Hooters' ongoing struggle with its identity. From the beginning, Hooters has been built around a provocative concept. It's right there in the name and reflected in the branding and uniforms. In fact, one of the brand's early breaks came in 1986, when Hooters girl Lynn Austin was named Playboy's Playmate of the Month. They've always embraced an image that's just a bit rebellious, a bit edgy. But over time, that image has become a double-edged sword. While it may attract a certain clientele, it also limits broader appeal, especially among families and more conservative diners. It even affects how platforms perceive them. For instance, one of my past videos about Hooters was initially demonetized by YouTube, possibly because their algorithm flagged the brand as adult content. That decision was eventually reversed, but it underscores how the Hooters name alone can raise eyebrows. Over the years, the company has flip-flopped in its approach to this dilemma. In 2013, as part of their 30th anniversary, Hooters tried to reposition itself as more family-oriented, placing a stronger emphasis on sports and updating the menu. A Business Insider headline at the time read, "Hooters tries to leave its racy past behind again." But then, in 2021, the brand faced backlash for introducing even more revealing uniforms for its servers. The inconsistency has been confusing for consumers and frustrating for employees. Now, as the original founders regain control over many of the stores, they're aiming to steer the brand back toward a more family-friendly image. Kyer has even said that in certain areas of the country, men avoid the restaurant because, in their words, "My wife would kill me." That stigma is something he hopes to change. But even if they succeed in softening the brand's image, a big question remains. Without the controversial allure, what will make Hooters stand out in an increasingly crowded market? So, what does the future hold for Hooters? Is it an outdated relic of a bygone era? Or does it have a chance to reinvent itself and thrive once again? I'd love to hear your perspective. Have you ever dined at Hooters? If so, what was your experience like? Do you think the brand can make a meaningful comeback, or has its time passed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for reading. Thanks for